What's going on, guys? In this video, we're going to look at Riot and AMD news regarding a data center. We're also going to take a look at Riot stock and Bitcoin on the chart, show you what's been going on there. And we have some recent news from MicroStrategy. This just dropped today here. Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, or Strategy as people like to call it now, has recently announced that they acquired 22,305 Bitcoin for $2.13 billion at an average price of $95,284 per Bitcoin. And as of this update, they now hold 709,715 Bitcoin, finally breaking over that 700,000 mark. And all of this Bitcoin that they now hold was acquired for a total of 53.92 billion at an average price of 75,979 per Bitcoin. And in the year 2026, they will reach 1 million Bitcoin held. It's only a matter of time. We also have some interesting news regarding Vanguard. This is a broker that I do use, and they were very hesitant in the beginning to get into any spot Bitcoin ETFs. They said they're basically not going to allow it on their platform, despite allowing the purchase of Bitcoin mining stocks, the purchase of MicroStrategy by clients. Well, we do have some MicroStrategy news here. Vanguard's $12 trillion value index fund bought 1.23 million MicroStrategy shares worth $202.5 million for the first time. And Andre Tate sums it up very well. That's a big signal. TradFi quietly stepping into MSTR proxy trade, meaning institutional comfort with Bitcoin exposure is growing. These moves don't happen for fun. And if you didn't know, they recently changed their policy regarding these spot Bitcoin ETFs. In early December 2025, they now began allowing clients of their brokerage of Vanguard to trade third-party spot Bitcoin ETFs. We're talking IBIT, Fidelity's FBTC. And this shift was made because of client demand and new leadership. The old CEO said basically, we're not touching any of these spot Bitcoin ETFs. We're not doing this. We're not even allowing it on our platform. But this shift in leadership with the new CEO that was previously at BlackRock influenced this decision to change their rules and policies. And this change went into effect in the beginning of December. This opens up potential exposure to these spot Bitcoin ETFs by Vanguard's clients now. And the news that I just showed you regarding Vanguard's index fund buying MicroStrategy as a way for some Bitcoin exposure is also very interesting. Let's get into this news with Riot stock, then we'll look at it on the chart, look at Bitcoin and what's been going on. It's been pulling back a bit, but Riot announced a fee simple acquisition of land, basically going from a lease with the land that they were using to owning this land, being able to do what they want with it. And they announced this acquisition of land and also a first data center lease with AMD at their Rockdale site, which is currently occupied by Riot. And this was funded entirely by the sale of 1,080 Bitcoin from Riot's own balance sheet. As for what's going on with AMD here, they're going to have an initial deployment of 25 megawatts delivered in phases beginning in January 2026, being complete in May of 2026, with the potential for more expansion up to 200 megawatts for HPC, for AI. And as said by the CEO of Riot, I'm pleased to share the substantial progress we've made at Rockdale, which expands our fully approved data center power portfolio to 1.7 gigawatts. Through the signing of a data center lease with AMD, this firmly establishes Rockdale as a leading data center development opportunity. And this partnership represents a validation of Riot's infrastructure development capabilities and attractiveness of our sites, our readily available power capacity, and our ability to offer innovative solutions to meet the requirements of top-tier tenants. We're incredibly excited to collaborate and grow with AMD, one of the most significant hardware manufacturers in the world and a key leader in the AI ecosystem. Less than 12 months since the launch of our formal process to evaluate our assets for AI or HPC use, today's milestones position us for future development and leasing opportunities. Now, as for some of the details, this data center lease carries a term of 10 years, expected to generate $311 million in contract revenue, which if you look at their revenue by the quarter, this isn't a massive amount in reality. But the big thing, in my opinion, is the expansion options. 5-year expansion options, 3 different ones, which if fully exercised brings the total expected contract revenue to about $1 billion. And in addition to that, AMD holds an expansion option for an additional 75 megawatts of critical IT load capacity and a right of first refusal for another 100 megawatts. If both are exercised, AMD's total lease capacity would increase to 200 megawatts from the initial 25. Riot has already commenced retrofitting these sites, with delivery to AMD expected in 2 phases, the first in January 2026, final completion in May of 2026. And as said by the CIO of AMD, we're excited to work with Riot, whose capabilities, power availability, and high-density solutions align with our infrastructure roadmap. This collaboration strengthens our ability to deliver the performance and scalability the AI ecosystem demands. And now if you want to read more into that, I'll leave it down below in the description. One thing with Riot is it has been one of the least impressive performers in terms of the Bitcoin miners. And looking at it from the crypto winter lows in December of 2022 to where it is currently, it's only done about a 5x. And that's about the best it has done. Sadly, this is one Bitcoin miner that has hardly outperformed Bitcoin throughout this whole entire cycle, while others at times have outperformed Bitcoin during times of euphoria, during times of greed. Now, its past performance throughout this cycle doesn't mean in the future it won't do better, but that is something worth noting. On a positive note, it has been in mostly an uptrend since April of 2025. Topped out when Bitcoin topped out, pulled back a bit, found support at the 200 MA on the daily, and recently we broke out of the 50 MA. Now it's getting hung up here at the psychological 20. If we can break over the psychological 20, all Riot needs to do is break this roughly 2350 or so, 24-ish, the previous highs in October, and then it can focus on taking out some previous levels from the last cycle. Riot does have earnings coming up, and they have somewhat grounded expectations where others expect a profit, maybe just based on where their last earnings was and where Bitcoin was price-wise. You know, they are anticipating a loss, which is, in my opinion, the most likely outcome for these Bitcoin miners, that throughout Q4, Bitcoin ended lower than it started the quarter. So they're going to take an unrealized loss on their Bitcoin holdings. At least Riot is somewhat realistic with their expectations. They also expect a decrease in revenue from the last quarter, but when you go more than one quarter back, this is an increase in revenue. I think February and March earnings season for these Bitcoin miners will be a bit rough because, like I said, Bitcoin's unrealized loss affecting Q4. So I am personally expecting some buying opportunities from some of the Bitcoin miners. And just for a reference point, here's Bitcoin. This is where it started the quarter at about 115,000. It ended the quarter at about 87,000. Took an unrealized loss. These Bitcoin miners from the beginning of Q4 to the end of Q4 for Bitcoin are going to see an unrealized loss on their Bitcoin holdings. Now getting into Bitcoin, we did break over the 50 MA, found support at it, very briefly took these previous highs out, but then got so close to the 50 MA weekly. I'll show you guys right now the 50 MA weekly. We were literally like a 3.5% move away from testing the 50 MA weekly. There it is, about a 3.5% move. It lost some steam, started selling off. One thing that I noted was we were approaching overbought, similarly to where we were at Bitcoin's all-time high in October. We were starting to approach overbought. The market sentiment is not the best. Right when we touched overbought, we started selling off, and now it looks like we're breaking under the 50 MA. Keep an eye on our daily candle here. We can start seeing at the end of the day this recovering, turning into a wick, and us not breaking the 50 MA. So keep an eye on it. If we do break this 50 MA, we may be due to see some lower levels like the 87,000 area, $85,000 area. Still, currently, I do think we are going to test that 50 MA at about 101,000 before we break lower, before we break under 80,000. But I guess time will tell. But what say you guys? How are you feeling about this MicroStrategy news? Do you think Strategy will see 1 million Bitcoin held in the year 2026, or will it take a little bit longer? And also, what do you think about this Riot news with AMD? These companies are starting to see the big players, the mega caps, starting to take interest in their data centers. We saw it with Google and TeraWulf. We saw it with Microsoft and Iron, and we're seeing it with AMD and Riot. This is still the early phases, but this is a step in the right direction. This shows that these Bitcoin miners / AI plays have the mega caps attention as a quick way to unlock more compute, as a quick way to increase their gigawatts and have more access to energy and power, which AI so desperately needs. But anyways, leave your comments and thoughts down below. Thanks as always for watching, guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.